The world watched as Donald Trump walked back into the White House. Louder, bolder, ready to reshape the world his way. January 2025. He turned to his old allies and made one demand: more money or no protection. Every country said yes, except one. One country stood alone, defiant, proud. Spain. This is the story of a nation that dared to say no to the most powerful man in the world and the storm that followed. Chapter 1. The Only No in the Room. January 2025. Trump was back. Back in the White House. Back in control. He didn't wait. He didn't ask politely. He gave an order. Allies must pay more, he shouted. 5% of your GDP. That's the new rule. His voice was loud, his face cold. It wasn't a request. It was a command. The NATO meeting in The Hague was silent. Ministers looked at each other, nervous. Then, one by one, they signed. France signed. Germany signed. The Netherlands, the UK, all signed, except one. One country said no. Spain. The room turned to Madrid's delegate. She stood firm, calm. We cannot agree, she said. Our limit is 2.1%. Her voice was steady, but the air was full of tension. Trump narrowed his eyes. Why? He asked. The answer was simple. 3 reasons. First, the economy. Spain was still recovering. High inflation, high debt, and slow growth. There's no room for military jumps, Madrid explained. Second, priorities. Hospitals, schools, transport. These needed money. People first, the Spanish minister said. We won't take from health to buy more missiles. Third, sovereignty. Spain wanted to decide for itself, not because of pressure, not because of Trump. In the press room, headlines exploded. Spain refuses Trump's demands. Madrid breaks NATO unity. One country dares to say no. People started talking. Was Spain foolish or brave? In Madrid, many clapped. In Washington, Trump fumed. He walked away from the cameras, angry. She'll regret this, he said quietly. For now, Spain stood alone. One voice, one decision, one small country saying no to the most powerful man in the world. But how long can they stand? How long before the storm begins? Chapter 2. Madrid's Reasons. The world watched. Why did Spain say no? Why stand alone when others gave in? The answer was not emotional. It was cold, logical. Spain had reasons, clear, strong reasons. Reason 1, the economy. Spain was not rich like Germany, not stable like France. The COVID years left deep scars. Inflation was high, debt was rising, and energy prices were still painful. Madrid said it clearly. We cannot afford a military jump. Not now. Not at 5%. That would break the budget and hurt millions of families. Reason 2. People first. Spain believed in hospitals, schools, and jobs, not in tanks, not in bombs. The Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, spoke on TV. His eyes were tired, but his words were strong. We will not cut education. We will not close clinics. We will not say to our teachers and doctors, sorry, Trump needs more money. The crowd cheered. Some cried. Others, unsure, asked, but is it safe? Sanchez answered, true safety begins inside the country, not in faraway wars. Reason 3. Sovereignty. Spain is proud. It was once an empire. It remembers its history. Madrid didn't want to be a follower, didn't want orders from Washington, not from Trump, not from anyone. A Spanish newspaper wrote, saying no is not weakness, it is freedom. The government wanted to decide its own path, even if the cost was high. But not everyone agreed. The opposition shouted, you are isolating us. You are risking our future. Some newspapers called Sanchez a dreamer. Others called him a hero. The people were divided. But one thing was clear. Spain had spoken, and the world was listening. Madrid stood on a narrow bridge. Behind them, Europe's silence. Ahead of them, Trump's anger. Would the bridge hold, or would it collapse under the pressure? The answer was coming fast. Chapter 3. The Trump Reaction. Trump was watching. He saw the Spanish press conference. He heard the no, and he didn't like it. Not one bit. That night, on Fox News, he spoke. His voice was sharp. His message, cold and direct. If they don't pay, we'll make them pay. They will pay double. Believe me, double. The host smiled nervously, but Trump was serious. He called Spain a freeloader, a country that enjoys protection without paying the price. At the White House, his team panicked. His words were too strong, too public. A few hours later, an official statement came out. The president believes in fairness. He hopes all allies contribute equally. But it was too late. Europe had heard the threat. Spain had felt the heat. And the message was clear. Obey or pay. In Madrid, the news hit hard. The stock market dropped. Investors grew nervous. The euro weakened slightly. Sanchez called an emergency meeting. Ministers, advisors, military officials, they all came. Faces were tense. Coffee cups shook in their hands. What would Trump do next? Sanctions? Tariffs? Pulling troops from NATO bases? Nobody knew. But everyone feared the same thing. Retaliation. The Spanish people watched closely. Some were angry, others afraid. A woman in Barcelona said on the news, "We are not a colony. He can't just order us like this." A businessman in Madrid said, "It's too risky. We need American trade. I support our government, but I'm scared." The pressure was growing, like a storm on the horizon. In Washington, Trump smiled. He liked pressure. He liked power. And now he was using both. He believed Spain would break, that they would come back to the table, begging. But Trump forgot one thing. Spaniards are stubborn, and this time they were ready to fight, not with weapons, but with pride. The world was now watching more than ever. Would Trump punish Madrid? Would Europe defend one of its own? Or would silence win again? The next move would decide everything. Chapter 4. Silence in Europe. Spain said no. Trump got angry. The world turned to Europe. And Europe stayed quiet. No strong words. No clear support. Just silence. And cold, careful smiles. In Brussels, the heart of the EU, leaders walked on eggshells. They didn't want to upset Trump, but they also didn't want to lose Spain. So they said nothing. Germany, the strongest economy, said it understood the debate, but didn't support or oppose Madrid. France gave a vague comment. Each country has its own path. The Netherlands stayed neutral, and the rest silent, afraid. Behind the scenes, diplomats whispered, "Let's not pick a side. Let's wait and see." But for Spain, it felt like betrayal. At home, the Spanish press exploded. Headlines shouted, "Where is Europe? Madrid stands alone. Unity or hypocrisy?" On Spanish TV, a journalist asked, "If not now, when will Europe protect its own? Do we only matter when we agree?" In private rooms, Spanish ministers were furious. They had hoped for at least one voice, one ally, one hand on their shoulder. But all they got was silence. The Prime Minister stood before Parliament. He looked tired, angry, determined. He said, "Europe cannot be a club of fear. We joined for unity, not for silence. If we fall alone today, others will fall tomorrow." Some clapped, some looked away. Meanwhile, in Washington, Trump was pleased. He saw Europe's silence as a win. "They're afraid," he told his aides. "I told you, they always fold." But not everyone in Europe agreed. In small protests across Paris, Berlin, and Rome, citizens held signs. "Support Spain," "No to military blackmail," "Europe, wake up." The people were speaking, but their leaders were still too scared. In the quiet halls of Brussels, a question echoed. Who will be next? If Spain is punished, will France speak out? Will Germany resist? Or will silence become the new language of Europe? The answer was coming soon. Chapter 5. Pressure at Home. Outside, Trump was shouting. In Europe, leaders were whispering. But inside Spain, things were boiling. The government of Pedro Sanchez was under fire, not just from abroad, but from inside its own walls. The economy was weak. Inflation was high. Unemployment was rising again. And now, a fight with Trump? Many Spaniards asked, is this really the right time? In the streets, protests grew. In Madrid, thousands gathered. Some waved Spanish flags. Others held signs, "No more risks." We need allies, not enemies. Fix our hospitals, not foreign policy. In Seville, a woman shouted, "We can't feed our children, and now we're fighting America?" But not all voices were angry. In Barcelona, a smaller protest marched with pride. They held banners. Spain stands tall. No to Trump's bullying. Europe must wake up. The country was divided. Fear on one side, pride on the other. Inside Parliament, the pressure was worse. Sanchez's party had a fragile majority, 1 or 2 missing votes, and the government could fall. The opposition saw an opportunity. They shouted across the chamber, "This prime minister is reckless. He is isolating Spain. He is putting ideology before survival." Some even called for new elections. At night, Sanchez sat with his advisors. He looked tired. He rubbed his eyes. "They think we're weak," he said, "but giving up now would destroy our future." One advisor warned, "Sir, the right wing is rising fast. If they win, they'll follow Trump's path." Another said, "You have one chance. Show the people this is not just about weapons. It's about dignity." On live TV the next day, Sanchez spoke, "We are not against America. We are not anti-NATO. We are defending our right to choose." This is not just Spain's fight. This is a European fight against fear, against pressure. Millions watched. Some clapped. Some turned off the TV. But in one cafe in Valencia, an old man said, "I lived under Franco. I know what pressure feels like. What Sanchez is doing is brave." Still, time was running out. The opposition was organizing. The right wing was preparing. And outside Spain, Trump was watching, waiting, hoping for Madrid to fall. Chapter 6: The Shadow of Populism. Something dangerous was growing, not outside, not in Washington, but inside Spain, in the hearts of the angry. The right-wing opposition saw an opportunity. They smelled weakness, and they moved fast. In speeches, they repeated the same line. Spain is alone because of this government. Sanchez is destroying our alliances. We must fix this, now. They didn't just criticize. They promised something different, something stronger, something familiar. A new voice appeared. Young, loud, bold. His name, Carlos Reynoso, a rising star in the populist party. He wore a suit. He smiled for the cameras, but his words were sharp. We need a Spain that obeys no one, but respects power. Trump is strong. We should be with the strong. This government is weak. It must go. Crowds listened. Some clapped. Some cheered. Reynoso's party used social media well. Short videos, simple messages, strong music, fast edits. The message was clear. With us, Spain wins again. It sounded familiar. Too familiar. The term Trumpismo began to spread. A Spanish version of Trump's politics. Nationalism, anger, power. Reynoso didn't hide it. He said it on live TV. Yes, I admire Trump. He protects his people. He gets results. The polls began to shift, slowly but clearly. Sanchez's numbers dropped. The right wing rose. And then came the big question. What if there's an early election? Many experts warned, if the right wins, Spain will flip. Trump will have a friend in Madrid. Europe will lose its last voice of resistance. In Brussels, politicians worried. They spoke quietly in meetings. We must support Sanchez, said one. But we cannot interfere, said another. Even Macron and Schultz were silent. No public support, only private concern. Sanchez tried to fight back. He warned the nation. Populism is not strength. It is chaos behind a flag. But the people were tired. Tired of economic pain. Tired of being afraid. And when people are tired, they look for quick answers, even if the answers are dangerous. In Seville, a father said, I don't like Trump, but I like someone who acts. I want strength, not speeches. In Valencia, a student said, Reynoso is loud, but maybe that's what we need. The fear was growing, not of Trump, not of war, but of something deeper, something inside, division. Spain was cracking, left and right, old and young, hope and fear. And in that crack, the shadow of populism entered. Would it stay? Would it take power? Or could Spain hold on to its own voice before it was too late? The next chapter would decide everything. Chapter 7, Strategic Weakness. Everyone was talking about Spain, but no one was asking a deeper question. Why does Europe always depend on the U.S.? For years, the U.S. protected Europe from Russia, from terrorism, from cyber attacks. In return, Europe stayed close, followed Washington, bought American weapons, used American systems. At first, it seemed fair. But now, in 2025, some voices were asking, are we truly independent, or just protected pets? Spain's no to Trump opened a secret door. Inside was a hard truth. Europe was strong, but not really free. Let's look at the facts. 1. Military dependence. Most NATO countries use U.S. weapons. Planes, tanks, radar, satellites, all American-made. Spain, too. They buy F-35 jets. They rely on U.S. missile systems. Without America, their defense is incomplete. Second American bases in Europe. In Germany, Italy, Spain, Poland, there are U.S. military bases, troops, planes, intelligence systems. They help, they protect, but they also give Washington power. With one phone call, the U.S. can pressure any European leader. You want support? Then do what we ask. 3. Economic ties. Most European countries trade heavily with the U.S. banks. Technology, defense contracts, even food and cars. And the U.S. dollar? It's everywhere. Most EU central banks hold huge dollar reserves. That gives America more than money. It gives control. In a TV debate in Spain, one analyst said, "We are not free. We are inside a beautiful cage, and Trump has the key." Another replied, "Maybe, but breaking the cage might break the bird too." Madrid was trying to show courage, but now it had to face the real structure behind NATO. Trump's pressure wasn't just about money. It was about who controls the chessboard. And right now, the U.S. had all the queens and rooks. Even inside the European Union, division was growing. Poland and Hungary agreed with Trump. They were ready to pay more. They admired his tough man image. France and Germany were confused. They wanted to protect Spain, but also wanted to avoid a fight with Trump. The EU looked strong from the outside, but inside, it was full of cracks. In Madrid, one general said privately, "We can't build our own army in 1 year. We need help, but we also need respect." Another replied, "You can't ask for respect when someone else holds your shield." The idea of European independence was now on the table. Some called it strategic autonomy. It meant building weapons here, creating defense plans without the U.S. becoming truly free. But that would take time. Years, and money, lots of money. Spain had started a conversation. But would others join? Or would fear push them back into silence? Trump was testing more than one country. He was testing a continent. And right now, Europe looked strong, but hollow. In the next chapter, we will see what happens when Trump decides to hit back, not with words, but with action. Chapter 8. Alone Against the Giant. Then it happened. Trump moved, not with tanks, but with trade. A tweet appeared on his account. "Spain wants to play hard? Fine. We double tariffs on Spanish goods, olives, wine, cars. Payback begins now." Just one tweet. But it shook the markets. Spanish exports dropped. Farmers panicked. Car factories called emergency meetings. One olive producer near Cordoba said, "We send 40% of our olives to the U.S. If they double the price, no one will buy them." In Valencia, a wine exporter said, "Years of building our name in America, destroyed in one tweet." The Spanish government called it economic blackmail. But what could they do? Sanchez gave a press conference. "We will not bow to threats. We are open to talks, but not to surrender." He looked tired. His voice was firm, but his hands were shaking. The European Union reacted slowly. Brussels said it was concerned. Germany said dialogue is important. France said nothing, no action, no united defense, just words. Madrid felt the cold. People started to ask, are we truly part of Europe? Would they defend us if this was war? In the streets, things got worse. Thousands protested in Seville. They marched past supermarkets, prices rising. They shouted, "No more games! Trump is punishing us. Where is Brussels?" At the same time, right-wing rallies grew bigger. Carlos Reynoso stood on a stage in Malaga. He shouted to the crowd, "This government chose war with America. Now you pay the price. It's time for change." The crowd roared, flags waved, and the pressure grew. At night, Sanchez met with his team. A minister whispered, "Sir, we may not survive this. Polls are falling, fast." Another added, "People want relief, not resistance. Maybe we should reconsider." But Sanchez shook his head. "If we bend now, we bend forever." Meanwhile, in Washington, Trump smiled. His plan was working. "They'll break," he told Fox News. "They always do." He told European leaders privately, "Look what happens when you say no to me." Some listened. Some feared. None acted. Spain was alone. In a battle it didn't want. Facing a giant it couldn't fight. But something was changing. Across Europe, people began asking, what if it was us? What if he targets France next? Or Germany? A journalist in Rome wrote, "Spain may be alone today, but tomorrow it could be all of us." And slowly, fear turned into thought, thought into questions, questions into movement. Spain stood bruised, but standing. And the world now waited. Would the next blow come from inside or from across the Atlantic? The final test was near. Chapter 9. The Last Defense. Spain was on the edge. Sanctions hurt. Protests grew. The government shook. But Madrid did not fall. Not yet. Pedro Sanchez stood before Parliament one last time. His voice was calm, but his message was strong. They want us to kneel. We will stand. They want fear to win. We choose dignity. His words echoed through the room. Some cheered. Others stayed silent. The vote of confidence came. The government survived by 2 votes, only 2, but enough. For now. Across Europe, something began to move. Small, but real. In Brussels, A new discussion started. How do we protect one of our own? Some wanted to create an EU defense fund. Others proposed a response to U.S. sanctions. Nothing was final, but it was a start. Finally. In France, a protest broke out in support of Spain. Thousands marched near the Eiffel Tower. We are Spain too. No to bullying. Europe, wake up. In Berlin, young people held hands and formed a circle in front of the U.S. Embassy. A girl said, "This is not just about Spain. It's about who we want to be." Trump, as usual, tweeted, "Spain still losing. Weak government. More pain coming." But this time, something was different. People started to ignore it. Even some American journalists asked, "Is this really leadership, or just a show?" Back in Spain, the economy was still struggling, but new trade deals were being explored. Latin America, North Africa, Asia. Painful, but possible. And inside the country, something strange happened. People argued less. They helped each other more. In Seville, a bakery gave free bread to jobless workers. In Bilbao, students raised money for farmers. In Madrid, children drew signs for their windows. We are not afraid. Spain stands tall. Carlos Reynoso tried to use the anger. He gave more speeches. He promised strength. But something changed in the crowd. Some listened. Others walked away. Not everyone wanted more fire. Some wanted healing. The European Union still had problems, still had cracks. But Spain's stand did something powerful. It reminded the continent of one thing. You cannot build unity with silence. You must speak. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Weeks later, Sanchez appeared at another EU summit. This time, when he spoke, others listened. Germany nodded. France agreed. Even the Netherlands offered support. No more silence. Maybe not full unity, but a beginning. In history, some countries fight with guns. Others, with courage. Spain didn't win a war. It didn't defeat a superpower. But it stood. It said no when everyone said yes. And that was its greatest defense.